So, Tiny Toon Looniversity. From what I understand, because I have seen it, as best I could because I'm working and also I'm tired at times, after work. So, I want to rest. But, I have seen it, taken the time to see it. But like I said, I've been tired and everything. So, I can't remember all the episodes, binge watching them, if you will. So I have to go back and see them over time. But from what I've seen, first of all, I'll give it its flowers. Um, it definitely, it animation wise, it is definitely good looking. It's very, very nice. Very nice looking. Whether it's computer animation, done in 2D style, flash animation, whatever, or traditional 2D animation, or a hybrid of all of them. Who knows? Um, the animation looks good, looks smooth. The theme song, basically is a great homage to the original, so I like that. I do like the fact that they're still keeping a bit of that whole mentorship in a way with the characters, but there are a few things, a few moments, situations, in the show that that a lot of fans are not too fond of. And watching it, I can understand. First of all, the biggest one, even before the show started, was the revelation that Babs and Buster were going to be, basically going from not related, as they would say when introducing themselves in the original, to related. In other words, they are siblings, they are twins. And of course, this got a lot of people pissed off because it's like, why would you do that? Why would you change this dynamic that made the show popular? I mean, basically, the show, from a romance standpoint, had three main couples that got featured a lot together. Those couples being Buster and Babs, Plucky and Shirley, Hampton and Fifi, and that was it. That was it. I mean, you had other couples, as well, like Elmira, Montana Max, kind of a reluctant odd couple, pairing, if you will. And you had a few others. You had Dizzy with his numerous amount of women that would fawn over him. So you had kind of basically your status quo. But now all of a sudden you change all that. You change all that to where it's like, if you're gonna put romance in there, who's gonna be with who? Is Buster gonna be with Fifi? Is Hampton gonna be with Shirley? Is there LGBTQ? What's going on? And people do not like this. They don't, because they feel it's nothing more than just another, bowing and another, here you go, to make you happy to the SJW and woke cancel culture communities. And they don't like that. They hate it. They do. Now, there are some, from what I've understood, that are trying to give it a chance. I look at it like, look, it's got 2 seasons. Give it time. It's probably got more episodes for season 1 coming. We don't know. We don't know if that's true, if that's going to be a reality or not. But we do know it's got 2 seasons. And if it's 13 episodes each, you got to have 3 more episodes for season 1 and 13 episodes for season 2. As I checked something there, you got to have that. You got to have that for the show. Or if it's 26 episodes each, then you got to have basically 16 more episodes for season 1 and 16 episodes for season 2. However they do it, like I said, however they do it, you got to give it time. And look, some of the presentation may not be, everybody's cup of tea. That's obvious. Some people look at not the animation style, but more of the presentation, the humor, and everything like that to be kind of close to Gumball, SpongeBob, at times Ren and Stimpy like humor. And it's like, that's not what Tiny Toons was. That's not what made the original Tiny Toons great. And to a lot of people, this is just a slap in the face of the original Tiny Toons. And they don't like that. This is also to them, it's a slap in the face of the fandom. And what they want is a show that if you're going to bring back these characters and you're going to put it in a new setting as a reboot, they want that reboot to be similar to the original show. Have the same dynamics, have the same gags, have the same shipping romances that the original was known for. Don't change anything about it, when it comes to that. Like, you could change the rest of it. You could change the environment, how it's showcased, broadcast, presentation wise. You could change, these certain dynamics and stuff, but don't change, a lot of the heart and soul of what made the original. Because if you change that, to them, you lose the audience, or you'll be on the verge of losing it. So there's a lot of people that don't like this. They don't. I think one of the other things they don't specifically like is the dormitory, atmosphere, the environment. Like I said, you could change that. You could change that, but don't change what made the original what it is. You know what I'm saying? The heart and soul. Like the characters being not related and, being shipped together as boyfriend, girlfriend, and such, and all that. Don't change that. Don't change that whatsoever. But if you want to change it to where they're now roommates in dormitoriums, that's great. Go for it. Go crazy if you want to. And that's one of the aspects some people don't like about the show, is that dormitory environment. They were more used to Buster and Babs living with their own families, living on their own, and just going to school and going home and going on wacky adventures across the globe and whatnot. They were used to that. Same with characters like Plucky and Shirley, Hampton and Fifi, Foulmouth, Montana Max, Elmira, you name it. They were more used to that than anything else. And now that's kind of changed to where, Buster's rooming with Plucky and Hampton. Babs is rooming with Sweetie, Dizzy, and on occasion she's rooming or bringing over for, girls time, girl night out or girl night in, Fifi and Shirley. And, it's like, what's going on here? It's like, what is going on here? It's like, why do this? Why change this dynamic? And I think when I see all these complaints about some of this, there's not complaints about all, there's not a lot of complaints about it, but there are some. But when I do see some of those complaints, what I see is people probably not seeing exactly what, in my opinion, this show is, kind of being the modern day version of. You see, when I look at this show, look at this reboot, this retcon, if you will, what I see basically is Tiny Toon Adventures, the college years. That's what I see. I don't see Tiny Toon Looniversity, a reboot of the original with a new, fresh coat of paint, new environment, new changes, and all that. I don't just see that. What I see is Tiny Toon Adventures, the college years. And you might ask yourself, well, what do you mean? Well, let me give you an example. Let me give you a good example, okay? Let me give you a good example. Saved by the Bell was a very popular show on Saturday morning. It even got some primetime episodes here and there. Then, after the final season of the original Saved by the Bell, they decided that because it was so popular and people still loved the characters, they were going to continue it in a primetime series. And that series was Saved by the Bell, the college years. Basically, it was the same characters, along with some new characters, if you will, in a new environment. The only changes were you didn't have Lisa and you didn't have Jessie. Instead, you had two new characters in their place. One other character was going to be the replacement for Kelly, but behind the scenes, situations caused her to leave, and thus Tiffany Amber Teresen was brought back to be Kelly. And they did a storyline where she was brought in, if you will, basically in exchange for the girl that left because of behind the scenes issues. But yeah, but outside of Kelly and Screech and and Slater and Zach, you had two new characters and a new environment. There were some changes, but not total changes, because some of the changes that they made was basically like the introduction of Kelly having an affair with a teacher when that's a no-no. them having a dormitory master, if you will, in what's his name, Golic guy, or whatever his name was. You know, they had these changes. You know, they had these changes, and the biggest change was it was a little bit more mature at times, a little bit more adult-like. You know, so you had these changes, but most of the dynamic that people were used to with Saved by the Bell, the original, you know, was there. Zach's scheming at times was there. His connection and romance for Kelly was there. Him dating, you know, before him dating different women, you know, before hooking back up permanently with Kelly was there. You know, you had Slater still being kind of, you know, the muscle guy and everything, the jock. You had Screech still being Screech. You know, you still had the same things that people loved about the show, about the original show in the college years. Even, again, you know, and again, the thing is, the environment may have changed. You may have had new characters come in, you know, to associate with the originals and all that. You know, you may have had more mature themes and stuff, but when you get down to it, the heart and soul of what made the original Saved by the Bell was still there. It was, you know, still a part of it. And even though it didn't help the show last more than one season, you know, it was still there, and that's what attracted people to it. When it comes to Tiny Toons Looniversity, it's like that heart and soul, you know, is not there anymore. It's like the characters you know and love are there, but the heart and soul has been ripped out and replaced with a different heart and soul for the characters, you know, to represent. And it's like to a lot of fans, to some fans, not a lot, but to some, you know, it's a change that didn't need to be made. It's like environment-wise, as I mentioned earlier, you could change it all you want and everything as long as you kept the dynamic and the heart and soul of the original intact. I mean, some even don't like the changing environment and wish it would have just stayed to where Buster and Babs lived with their families and then went to school, That's it. But again, I think the reason people are complaining about that and the other changes among it that they don't like, you know, is the fact that basically, to them, you know, it's not Tiny Toons. It's got the Tiny Toons name and all that. It's got the characters, but it's not Tiny Toons. And again, the reason I think it is because, as I mentioned, to me, from what I can tell, and I'm sure others would agree with this, this has to be viewed not as, you know, a reboot of the original, if you will, a reboot, a retcon of the original, you know, for a new generation and for the original fan base. But this has to be viewed, and I'm sure others would agree with me, as Tiny Toon Adventures, the college years. You know, that's how this has to be looked at. You know, new environment, new setting, you have different, you know, characters interacting, but and all that, and you have different changes here and there with the characters that you know and love. Thus, you have to look at it like it's Tiny Toon Adventures, but it's the college years because it is mostly being set in a college environment. You know, and that's the best I can explain it. You know, from what I saw, that's the best of how I can explain it. That it's Tiny Toon Adventures, the college years. Because like I said, just like with Saved by the Bell, there were changes, but you still have the heart and soul. Here, there are massive changes, and the heart and soul has been changed, and thus it's Tiny Toon Adventures, but more on a college perspective with more mature themes to it. But that's just my take on it. That's just my take on how I think people feel about it. Let me know what yours is, and I'll talk to y'all later.